Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our event today on lifelong options, improving opportunities for adult learners, supporting local and national prosperity. This is the fourth event in our OFS Insight series, and we are very pleased to welcome so many people. This morning, you're joining hundreds of colleagues from across the higher education sector. We have students, student representatives, academic and administrative staff from universities and colleges, and sector representative bodies and other agencies, as well as members of the media here. And while it's morning for most of us, I would particularly like to say good evening to one of our guest speakers joining us from Australia, Professor Elizabeth Johnson, who's Deputy Vice Chancellor of Education at Deakin University. So turning to today's Insight brief, we have published the brief this morning, Improving Opportunity and Choice for Mature Learners. And the brief examines some of the challenges that universities and colleges are facing to ensure that mature students are supported. And we're going to paste a link in the chat where you can find the brief on our website. So moving on now to talk about the agenda this morning. The event is in two parts, separated by a quick break. And in the first half, we're going to hear from our chair, Lord Wharton Irving-Yarm, James Wharton. And then after James, we're going to hear two keynote presentations. The first from Michelle Donnellan, Minister of Universities, and the second from Lord Bilimoria of Chelsea. Then after the break, we will have a panel discussion, which will consider the opportunities and challenges we face in improving access to higher education for adult learners. And the panel discussion is going to be chaired by our Head of Skills, Brooke Storer-Church. And for the discussion, we are inviting you to submit questions using our Q&A box in Zoom. If you're happy to have your name and organisation read out, then please include these details as well. And then to conclude, we're going to be hearing from Chris Millward, Director for Fair Access and Participation at the Office for Students, who will be reflecting on how we are addressing the decline in adult learner participation and the opportunities that lie ahead. And we're going to be live tweeting from today's event using the hashtag OFS Insight, so do please use this. There are going to be live captions and subtitles available, and they could be accessed by clicking on the CC icon in Zoom, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen. And the event is being recorded and will be made available on our website next week. So with that by way of background, let's kick off. And I would now like to introduce you to our first speaker, our new OFS chair, James Wharton. James, over to you.
Thank you, Nicola, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm not going to keep you for too long, actually, a few opening remarks, and not least, this is my first Insight event. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the discussion as we go through the morning. I'm, as Nicola said, relatively new now to the role. I've been chair of the OFS for 2 months, and I've been struck by the energy and engagement that I've felt from the sector and the range of issues that we face across the sector and across education as an area of significant interest in policy, as well as the opportunities. It's been a very challenging year for a lot of students, for a lot of people generally in our country and society and economy, and for a lot of the institutions which we at the OFS work with and regulate. But there are some positives that I think we can take from some of the experiences we've all had. Some of those will be in the way that we use mediums such as this to accelerate online learning and improve accessibility of education. And some of it we can see in some of the trends, one of which is the uptick and increase in the numbers of mature and adult students. This is, I think, an exciting, therefore, potential turning point. It's a moment when a long-term decline in the number of older students has seemingly started to turn around. And that presents an opportunity for educational institutions, of course, and a lot of work there that can and should be done, but also a real opportunity for our economy. We know how fast things change in the modern world. I imagine nearly everyone on this call can think back to when they started working, and emails and mobile phones were rarities rather than ever present and commonplace, and they now dominate so much of our lives. When you look to the future economy, it's very clear that we're going to need new skills, we're going to need new training, we're going to need a workforce that can adapt to the new technologies and opportunities that it will present. When you layer over that the challenges and opportunities that will come as we leave the COVID pandemic, the way in which investment is coming our changing economy, particularly being driven by environmental concerns, there are significant opportunities. We can see that in a lot of the policies and the economic policies coming from government. We can also see that in lifelong learning entitlement and the move towards ensuring that accessibility to training, to upskilling, to education throughout someone's life. So it's a very exciting time to be discussing this incredibly important subject. I'm delighted, therefore, we've got such good attendance today and such great speakers. And it is my pleasure to hand over to the Minister for Universities, or to a presentation video, keynote speech from the Minister of Universities, Michelle Donovan.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me here today to speak with you about a cohort of students that I think too often are not given as much airtime in the discussion: mature students. Mature students, along with the rest of our student population, have endured an incredibly difficult year. Having taken brave steps to enter education later in life, like other students, mature students have had to adapt to abrupt and wide-ranging changes brought about by this once-in-a-century pandemic. So before I take on the substance of today's speech, I would like to sincerely thank all mature students. Thank you for your patience and your resilience which you have displayed over this pandemic. I and this government stand fully behind you, both in your journey to retrain and learn new skills later in life, but also as we transition out of this pandemic. Those listening today will already know that mature students embark into higher education for a wide range of reasons, from career purposes to academic interest. And in the context of COVID-19, we'll all know anecdotally of friends and family who are now considering returning to education to retrain or to upskill. Indeed, the number of mature applicants, those aged 21 and over, to UK higher education this year, as of the January deadline, had increased by a staggering 21% from the previous year, whereas the increase for under 21s was 6%. And we're not talking about small numbers of students here. In the 2019 to 2020 academic year, there were around 272,000 mature students at undergraduate level in the UK. This equates to 38% of all undergraduate entrants. In the same year, there were 208,000 mature students aged 25 and over, and postgraduate entrants in 2019 to 2020 represented 50% of the overall postgraduate student entrants. Yet, despite their numbers, mature students can face different barriers to accessing and also succeeding in their studies. They typically have higher dropout rates, and those who can and do manage to complete their studies achieve lower grades than their younger peers. So it is high time that we recognise mature students in a way that is commensurate with their numbers and put in place more interventions to support them. I know that a huge number of universities are already doing this. In fact, at the University of West London, bold steps have been taken to improve outcomes for mature students, including outreach tailored to mature learners, with off-campus activities, daytime activities, all to coincide with school runs and evening sessions. And the University of Durham, they have developed a number of evidence-informed interventions to address mature students dropping out of courses, such as introducing a suite of formative assessments early in the first term to inform early interventions where students are facing difficulties. Also at Birkbeck, with the pandemic having stopped all face-to-face activities with mature learners, the university's moved all community-facing pre-entry programs online and designed tailored guides to help students navigate these learning environments. These are fantastic interventions, and I know that we all want to see more of these. So I urge all institutions to share best practice, and by doing so, we will be upskilling and educating so many more people who will benefit our economy in the future. Because if we are to become a high-skilled nation, one in which we can take a leading role in tackling climate change or delivering big infrastructure projects and fill the demand for jobs from nursing to digital to engineering to teaching, well, we need to be open to training as many people as possible, no matter what age they are. I also do believe there is a role for government here. And one of the key ways in which we are doing this is through our Lifetime Skills Guarantee, which will do what it says on the tin. It will give every student a flexible lifelong loan entitlement to the equivalent of 4 years of post-18 education, whether in their local college or in their university. It will give people the opportunity to train, to retrain and to upskill throughout their lives so that they can respond to the changing skills needs and employment patterns. It will quite frankly have a transformative impact on post-18 study, delivering greater parity between further and higher education. One of the parts of this that I am most excited about is modular study, which in my view must be at the very heart of how we deliver education in the future. You only need to think now about the people in your lives and how many of them will want to gain skills and knowledge later on in life, but have been unable to do so because of existing commitments. It is extremely difficult, if not impossible, for so many people to contemplate taking a traditional 3-year degree, especially if they have young children or caring responsibilities, a mortgage or a job. In fact, research published last month by TASO backed up what we know intuitively, and that is that universities who offer more online and blended learning will be much more attractive to mature students. It also found that mature students prefer providers who offer extra support, such as out-of-hours classes, extra academic support, or a designated staff member, and to a lesser extent, availability of childcare. So by making learning much more flexible, we can open up lifelong learning to many more people, and importantly, make sure that mature students complete courses and complete them with good outcomes that set them up for their goals afterwards. Already, we've taken a number of steps over recent years to encourage more flexible learning, including greater support for part-time learners, through maintenance support and providing greater incentives for providers to offer accelerated degrees and introducing degree apprenticeships. The goal is to train more highly skilled graduates who can deliver for our regional and national economies. And it also plays a role in delivering true social mobility. Because simply put, we cannot close off opportunities to people because they have already celebrated their 21st birthday. Instead, we say to people that no matter your circumstances, no matter your age, we are supporting you to get the skills that you need to make a better life for yourself. But there is so much more to be done, and we need universities to help us to deliver it by broadening your intake and proactively looking at what options you can offer mature students. Of course, another aspect that I would like to touch on is quality, which will affect all students, including mature students. In line with our manifesto commitment to tackle low-quality courses, we share your intent on driving up standards in higher education. At a very basic level, this means that every student receives a high-quality academic experience that enables them to gain the skills and the knowledge that they set out to. Now, we know that mature students often attend university to retrain or to take a step on towards a different job or a step up a job ladder, and that they will rightly expect a high-quality academic experience that is likely to improve their prospects in life. I know that this year has been tremendously difficult for everyone involved in higher education, but time and time again as a sector, you have risen to the challenges that have been faced. And as we start to focus, to fix our eyes on the future, I want the interests of mature students to come much more into view, because they will play a crucial role in the economic prosperity of our country. Perhaps more importantly though, is that we should all be proud to support those brave enough to want to return to education later in life and forge a path for themselves. Thank you.
Many thanks there remotely to our Minister of State for Universities. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Lord Billamoria. Karen, welcome to joining us today. Lord Billamoria is an entrepreneur and founder of Cobra Beer and chairman of the Cobra Beer Partnership. In July 2014, he was installed as the 7th Chancellor of a Russell Group University in Great Britain. Karen was a member of the Centenary Commission on Adult Education, and in June 2020, he was appointed President of the Confederation of British Industry, the CBI. So with that, Karen, welcome again, and I'm handing over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Nicola, and it's great to be with all of you today and to follow on from the Minister. I think that the higher education sector should be commended in its response to COVID-19 over a year. It's been a hugely challenging time for everybody, everywhere in the world. A health crisis, economic crisis, demand shock, a supply shock reverberating through the supply chains with the domino effects around every sector in every part of the world. And the university sector has been phenomenal. And as a proud Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, I have seen firsthand what one of the largest universities in our country has done in adapting to providing distance learning, in adapting to providing a safe environment, in leading the charge with testing around the country, and in implementing testing ourselves for our students and our staff and our university community. And I personally championed the usage of lateral flow testing since last summer. The government initially did not listen. Eventually they did listen. And from November, this has been rolled out to all businesses, to all universities free of charge, and now to every citizen in the country, delivered to your home or from a pharmacy free of charge. So it is remarkable, and the universities played a major part in that. We've made sure students are safe and supported. We've made our campuses COVID secure. We're delivering teaching outcomes for our graduates and the economy needed for recovery. And there is no running away from it, whichever way we look at it, whether it's school children, whether it's college students, whether it's university students, young people have suffered hugely throughout this pandemic. And when it comes to unemployment, it is young people's jobs that have been lost, and we've got to make sure there is no long-term scarring of youth unemployment going forward. And the CBI, of which I'm proud to be president, has been pressing the government to bring business and education into the decision-making process and to make sure that communications are clear and timely. And looking ahead, this could be vital. We've heard the issues with communications right now with local areas and confusion that can be caused if communication is not clear. COVID-19 is still a challenge, and it's going to be a challenge not only for us domestically. Hopefully we're coming out of it with our fantastic vaccine program, but the rest of the world unfortunately isn't. I chaired the B7 conference of business organizations, the preeminent organizations like the CBI and the G7 countries, as well as South Africa, South Korea, India, and Australia, and Business Europe as well. I always say we may have left the European Union, but Britain will never ever leave Europe. And to prove that, the CBI continues to be a member of Business Europe. And the messages that came out from that B7, which have been fed in through the communique to the G7, is very, very strong messages. And just one or two of them, the Director General of the WTO, Dr. Ngozi, a hugely impressive individual, and the Chief Economist of the IMF, Dr. Geeta Gopinath, again, highly impressive. Their messages were very clear that the inequality that exists around the world, Africa, that 17% of the world's population has 0.15% of the world's vaccine manufacturing capability. The 400 billion pounds of support that we as businesses, universities, citizens have received in this country per capita absolute terms is phenomenal. America likewise has given huge support. There are countries in the world where people have been given no support whatsoever. And vaccination programs, we're well on the path, America's well on the path, but there are many countries who have not received any vaccinations at all. So the recovery from the pandemic is going to be a very unequal recovery around the world. And that is going to affect us as universities, because our international students coming in September Are we going to be able to offer them vaccinations, free vaccinations to all our international students? I believe that is going to be the case, and the government has agreed, in which case that is wonderful news. But what about quarantining? If they're red list countries now, students coming in, affording the £1,750, but also the quarantining capacity. I don't think the hotel capacity exists. So our universities are coming forward and saying, we will provide that quarantining on our campuses in a safe and secure way. And we've got to do that now and make sure the government listens to that, so that then we have the ability to attract the international students who are going to be coming in here, knowing that they can come here, be vaccinated, quarantine if necessary safely, and be able to then join their courses with regular testing available if necessary as well. So it's essential. International students, I'm proud to be a former international student myself, and I chair the all-party parliamentary group on international students along with my colleague, the MP Paul Blomfield, and I'm also president of UKISA. So £26 billion to our economy, a phenomenal inward investment in export, and one of our strongest elements of soft power that we have as a country, with generation-long links being built. I'm the third generation of my family to be educated here, and my children are now at British universities, graduated British universities as well, fourth generation. They're world leaders, more from the UK and America than any other countries in the world that have been educated here and in the USA. And that is just absolutely phenomenal. But that we need a step change in our approach to adult education to support the vision that the government has of leveling up, of spreading prosperity across the country, not just north-south divide, across the whole of the United Kingdom. And our recent Learning for Life report of CBI found that 9 out of 10 people will need to upskill or retrain by 2030 to prevent a skills gap emerging in the UK, with 80% of the 2030 workforce already in employment. Boosting the number of adult earners must be a priority in the years ahead. We've quantified this as about £130 billion that business will have to spend on training going ahead. And adult participation in all levels, as your report, the OFS report, has very clearly shown, the insight number 9, improving opportunity and choice for mature students. Adult participation in all levels of education has dropped over the last decade, with our CBI report suggesting that a lack of confidence, access to information, and adequate flexibility are issues for many. And reversing the decline will be critical to combating unemployment caused by the pandemic, seizing opportunities presented by technological change, creating a more productive, inclusive, and competitive economy. And this is another message that came out of the B7. One of our members said, thank God for digital in this pandemic. Can you imagine if we didn't have the digital capacity that we're doing right now, we're using as we're holding this event? 10 years ago, we would not have been able to do this. So digitization has really helped. But of course, the flip side of it is, with greater digitization comes greater vulnerability. So cybersecurity is going to be an issue for our country, for our universities going forward. So enabling more people to access higher education is integral to overcoming national and local skills challenges and expanding opportunities for people of all ages. And the change of occupational structure means more people require some form of higher education. And the CBI's 2018 skills survey found that over 3/4 of businesses expect to increase the number of high-skilled jobs in the coming years. But, and here's the but, 2/3 are concerned over the availability of sufficiently skilled people. So education providers will be critical to inspiring people to learn, to retrain, to provide timely and accurate information on which courses support different types of employment. And we've got to address this. And collaboration between colleges, universities, and businesses can build ladders of opportunity at all stages. Bringing forward the lifelong loan entitlement and make it easier for more adults to study flexibly and develop skills throughout their working lives. So the government's introduction of the LLE, usable for modules and courses for people of all ages, is great progress towards prioritizing adult education and making it easier for adults to study flexibly and transfer credits between institutions. And this can help people build skills over time and remove barriers to entering education. And accelerating the introduction of the entitlement before 2025 will be essential to drive the reskilling demands of our economy. And the government should work closely with the further education, higher education sector, with providers to incentivize and upscale more modular, flexible, and online learning. And as Nicola said, I was proud to be a member of the Centenary Adult Education Commission. And you know, it was centenary because we held this commission in 2019, and the first commission was in 1919 after the First World War. And the analogies were amazing because they were going through the Spanish flu as well at that time. We didn't know about a pandemic when we submitted our report in November 2019. And so many of the recommendations of our report, I'm so happy, are now being taken up, including this lifelong learning entitlement funding throughout your life to be able to continue to learn. And business, government, and education providers must work hand in hand to build a culture of lifelong learning that inspires people to fulfill their potential regardless of age. And the apprenticeship levy, this has to change. It has not worked. It is not working anywhere near as well as it could. It needs to be far more flexible. And we've been calling on this for a long time at the CBI. And I do hope that that change comes across soon. The Kickstart scheme is a great scheme. We at the CBI had a big role to play in its formation, but we are now asking the government, please, there are 200.
Yep. Hello, sorry, Lord Billimore, I think we're having some technical issues. I think you're back on screen now, so I'll disappear.
I was suddenly muted. So I don't know if did you hear the Kickstart point that I was making? Could somebody say yes or no?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you very much. So that Kickstart scheme, if that extension until June next year would be really amazing. So before I conclude, this week has been a very, very important week for us. On Monday, we launched our economic vision, Seize the Moment, the vision for the UK for the next decade. And we have outlined some of the opportunities we've identified for the UK, including how we can harness the strength of our world-class universities. And we've got 6 pillars: decarbonisation, innovation, trade, the regions, including economic clusters with universities at their heart. And of course, the best example we have in the UK is the Cambridge cluster with the richly tech and now, of course, biotech, life sciences. AstraZeneca, who manufacture the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, is headquartered in Cambridge. Inclusion, so diversity and skills. And at CBI, I'm delighted and proud that we launched the initiative, Change the Race Ratio. I'm the first person of ethnic minority origin to be president of the CBI. It's very important for me to champion ethnic minority participation across all our universities and businesses, and Change the Race Ratio. Please look it up, please sign up to it. We've got almost 100 leading businesses in this country that have signed up to it, making the commitment more transparency, including the ethnicity pay gap, which is there. It is huge in some instances, well over 10–15% in institutions, including making sure the top level, at executive level, at board level, we have ethnic minority participation, and most importantly, that we promote inclusion, because diversity without inclusion is useless. It is the inclusion, the culture, the mentoring, creating the environment for diversity to flourish that is so important. Our universities play a major, major role in seizing the moment. And also we can consolidate our position as a scientific and technology superpower, which I'm proud we are going to be able to do. So to conclude, the drop in level of mature students, the drop in level also part-time students, has to be turned around. And the lifelong learning entitlement will make a big difference to this. The Skills and Post-16 Education Bill announced in the Queen's speech is fantastic news for us. And we are delighted to be able to go forward and implement that. And thank you again for your Improving Opportunity and Choice for Mature Students report. And finally, the Minister mentioned the University of West London. Well, before being Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, where I've been Chancellor now coming up to 7 years, I was Chancellor for 5 years, from 2005 to 10, of what was then Thames Valley University. And when I left, we changed the name to the University of West London. And the University of West London was all about further education and higher education being offered. And one of our mottos, one of our slogans was further and higher. We've got to offer that opportunity to everyone, to young students, to adult students, mature students, part-time students, to be able to learn throughout their lives at institutions like the University of West London. And as Warren Buffett said, the more you learn, the more you earn. I've continued lifelong learning. I'm an alumnus of 3 business schools, through lifelong learning and higher and continuing education. So Cranfield School of Management, London Business School, Harvard Business School, for the last almost 2 decades, I've embarked on lifelong learning. I know how fantastic it is. And as Mahatma Gandhi said, live as if you're going to die tomorrow, learn as if you're going to live forever. And I firmly believe in that. Thank you very much, and a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much, Karen. You are a fantastic advocate for lifelong learning. And I think your insights, particularly about positioning the issue of mature students in the broader global context of the consequences of the pandemic, but also in more domestic agendas of inclusion and thinking through how we can build this culture of lifelong learning. Really important, interesting insights. So thank you so much. They also set us up very well for the panel discussion that we're going to have now after the break. So we're going to break now for 10 minutes, and we will look forward to rejoining you all at 10:40 when we will welcome our panel speakers and the contribution via Zoom to a broader debate. So I look forward to seeing you at 10:40.